Hello everybody, welcome back to the second review of Black Butler. This is the review of Season 2, and for the first review I did suit and tie, I did a very fancy British accent, and I'm not doing that this time, because if this season didn't really feel as though it needed to come dressed as its best and do its best work, then well, neither do I. So let's get started with the review of Season 2. Now, for this review, I'm not going to get too deep into spoilers because I figured if you do want to go and watch this season on your own, well, I guess you can. But right out of the gate, this show took what was kind of a confusing but sort of poetic and conclusive ending for Season 1 and, well, threw it away because Ciel's soul wasn't actually eaten by Sebastian, it was stolen, and now it needs to be reobtained. So right off the bat, we're off to a bad start, in my opinion, because it took what was an odd but sort of logical conclusion to the first season and threw it right in the trash. So if it started out so bad, well, maybe there's nowhere to go but up, right? Wrong. Now, Season 1 of Black Butler isn't perfect. It did take a few missteps, but the overall ending did make sense in the moment until you actually sit back and realize that they planned a Season 2, because you can't exactly plan a Season 2 if your first season kills off the main character, now can you? So I do kind of blame Season 1 for forcing Season 2 to start the way it did, but don't worry, Season 2 does more than enough wrong on its own. For example, one of the things that made the first season so good in terms of characters was that we had sort of a conflicted anti-hero character in Ciel and a genuinely and occasionally scary character, but also a very charming character in Sebastian. And then we get to Season 2, where we have another conflicted, spoiled rich kid as our antagonist instead of protagonist without nearly the depth of Ciel, and a bargain bin demon butler who is sort of there to be the parody to Sebastian, but also a convincing villain, and at one point an ally. I know, it doesn't make much sense. The problem with having a character so similar to Ciel is the fact that it makes Ciel himself seem like the lesser of two unlikable characters, as opposed to a conflicted character, and you're basically just watching these two unlikable characters fight over who gets their soul eaten last. And it really does detract from the story, unfortunately. Now, the season does have quite a few moments that feel akin to something that would have come straight out of the manga, which is good, but there aren't enough of them to distract from the fact that once the actual story climax starts to come around, it really just falls apart at the end, unfortunately. Because unfortunately, a lot of the tail end of the story just ends up feeling like two rich kids playing cat and mouse while their demon butlers fight to the death and or make pacts by bleeding on roses. I know it doesn't make much sense, but I really can't explain it any other way than that. Alright, so I've spent the first chunk of this review talking about things that I don't like, so let's talk about something that I do like. There are actually two things that I enjoy about this series. Number one, the opening. I would say that this is one of the best openings of the entire series, right alongside Enamel, the opening for Black Butler Book of Circus, and that was actually extremely enjoyable. I loved every moment of it. It really got the blood flowing, made you feel like you were about to watch something really good. Unfortunately, it was just partnered with the wrong season. The second thing that I really enjoyed was the comedy, which didn't really come from the main characters nearly as much as it did in the last season. It came from characters like the waitstaff at the mansion, or Grell, which they were the core of the actual comedy from the last season, but you did get a lot more of the other characters chiming in, like Ciel, Sebastian, and the like. But overall, those were the two things that stood out to me the most that I really enjoyed from this series. The opening, and the comedy, which came from completely unrelated characters, and that was about it. So let's get back to the hate, shall we? So I have a question. What, in your opinion, made the first season so good? I have my own opinions that I'll share in a moment, but don't leave a comment, I want to know. I will genuinely read them because I'm very curious. For me, what made the first season so good was the fact that they masterfully combined drama, comedy, mystery, and of course, supernatural elements, and what was a very big turnoff for me with the second season was the fact that they went completely overboard with the supernatural elements. Now, don't get me wrong, I expect a show about a demon butler to have quite a few supernatural elements, but the way the first season and the manga sort of weaved the narrative into the world, made it a part of the world, but hid it from certain characters, made it feel more believable. It was sort of understood that there were only a few people privy to the knowledge that there were supernatural beings in this world, and everybody else was sort of left in the dark. Even people as close to Ciel as the waitstaff of his own mansion, they weren't aware that Sebastian was a demon or anything like that. They were just aware that he was an exceptional, rather one hell of a butler. And moments where people suspected that perhaps Sebastian wasn't human were played off for serious moments, but more times than not played off for comedy, and it worked out very well. So to have the second season go all out with Sebastian fighting to the death with Claude in this basically Butler Superman fight with a magical sword and all these weird elements just made the show overall feel a lot less believable, and also broke a lot of the things that we understood from Sebastian as a character. It seemed very out of character for him. And then of course we have Alois Trancy, which... do I really have to talk about him? I guess I must. In the first season, Ciel's disdain for other people was there. We were obviously aware of it, especially considering what we learned about his past, but it was always kept very subtle, like a calm breeze blowing across a field. Except in this case, the field the breeze is blowing across also happens to be the field that Bambi's mom was shot in. However, Alois's disdain for other people is so over the top and in your face that it's almost comical. Need I go any further than his first interaction with Hannah? I mean, my god, nobody does that. That's not how you introduce a villain. If you want somebody to be unlikable, make us not like him because he's doing something to our main character. Don't make him do something to a character we have no relation or any history with, and then just go, see, he's bad, don't like him. That's not how you do it, unfortunately, and it really did backfire because Hannah turns out to be fairly unlikable towards the end anyway. If he had done something like pluck the eye out of Sebastian, while it may have regrown, that's a scar that will be there. That's a hatred developed because this character has now physically assaulted somebody that we have an entire season with. Doing it to a character we have no history with and then having that character turn out to be a bit of an evil bastard anyway doesn't really build any sort of rapport and make us feel anything other than just sort of disgust. I've gone over this scene so many times trying to figure out why they would have done it this way, and the only thing I can think of is it's for shock value. And maybe to sort of ham-handedly make us aware that he's the villain, but, I mean, if we weren't already aware of it, they make it even more obvious by the end, so whatever. It almost feels like the concept of subtlety for this character was just completely thrown out the window in order to make him feel darker and edgier than Ciel, but as a result of trying to do that so ham-handedly, they ended up just making like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. So yes, I don't like Alois Trancy. I'm going to go drink some bleach now in order to forget that I ever talked about him in such detail, and we're going to conclude the video now. Now, this review has obviously been focusing on the characters, and that's because even after going back and watching a handful of episodes, I really didn't want to go back and watch the entire season, and everything about the story just feels so disjointed right until the very end that I don't feel as though I really want to talk about the story, because if the characters, both new and old, sort of fall apart in my mind at the very beginning, there's really no need to talk about the story, because for most people, if that's where your feelings sort of stop in the fact that you just don't like the characters, well, you're not going to really follow the rest of the story now, are you? If you are interested in the story, it is available on Funimation, and you can put your own thoughts on what you did and didn't like about the story in the comments, but overall, the thing that fell apart for me were the characters. They took well-established characters like Ciel and Sebastian and even the waitstaff and made them feel like a fan fiction version of the ones that we had come accustomed to in the first season. And then they introduced new characters who are so obviously evil and so obviously a parody of the first season's characters of Ciel and Sebastian that it really just felt like somebody took their playthings and threw them on the floor and said, I'm going to make a Black Butler story now. And it didn't work out very well. This season is obviously a very major misstep in what is normally a very, very good series. The first season was incredible right up until the very end, and we'll talk more about the following seasons in another video. But I've yet to find any anime that is manga-based that has ever benefited from going into the sort of anime-only route. The closest I think that we've ever come is in Fullmetal Alchemist, the original Fullmetal Alchemist, and Hellsing. But even then, when we did finally get the manga's ending animated in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Hellsing Ultimate, those were so much better than the anime-onlys that I really can't justify any series ending as an anime-only. Now, that's not to say that anime-onlys are always bad. Entire anime-only series can be very, very good. I mean, just look at Death Parade. That series is amazing, and it's an anime-only. But when you adapt manga writing and then throw in anime-only elements, it all just tends to fall apart. And unfortunately, Black Butler falls into this same camp. Season 1 did struggle to sort of end in any meaningful way, And then they doubled down on the anime-only last portion by making season 2. And fortunately, the OSTs did get back to the manga. However, this will fortunately be the last time that I have to speak so harshly about the Black Butler series, because the next review that will be coming out sometime in the near-ish future is going to be talking about their 2-episode OST, Book of Murder. I hope to see you all there. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to stop doing the British accent now because it's getting harder and harder. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Join our Discord if you want to. There's a link to it. It'll also be in the description. And apart from that, thanks for watching and have a good one.